Freddie Roach trained world champions for decades. He built them from scratch.
Turn of events in between rounds. Floyd Mayweather Sr. Good counter, right cross by Mayweather.
He rebuilt them when they were broken. He watched them go from nothing to everything inside 4 walls and 40 feet of canvas. He has seen nearly every kind of fighter there is. And then, in the summer of 2001, a skinny, barely known Filipino southpaw walked through the door of the Wild Card Boxing Club in Hollywood. And Roach felt something he had never felt before. Not from watching, from the mitts. That's the part of the story most people miss. Every other trainer in Los Angeles had already seen Manny Pacquiao. They watched him shadow box. They watched him work the bag. They watched him spar. And one by one, they passed. Not because Pacquiao was unimpressive. He was impressive. But he was 122 pounds. He had no American name. There was no money in it. So they watched, and they walked. Freddie Roach did something different. He put the mitts on, and after one single round, he knew. The snap behind Pacquiao's punches had a quality Roach had never felt from any fighter in his career. Explosive, intense, something alive in it that you couldn't see from the outside. You had to feel it. And the trainers who had passed on Pacquiao had never gotten close enough to feel it. Roach would later call it the best decision he ever made. But here is where the real story begins. Because what Roach recognized in that first round was also the beginning of the most complicated training relationship of his life. Pacquiao wasn't a blank canvas. He was the opposite. He arrived at the wild card having already fought 35 professional fights. He was a former world champion. He had been shaped in every fundamental way before Roach ever touched him. And that shaped fighter had a very specific problem. Manny Pacquiao in 2001 was one-dimensional. He had a left hand unlike anything in the sport, a southpaw's power hand that landed with a violence that felt disproportionate to his body. But beyond that left hand, there was almost nothing else. Every combination circled back to it. Every angle set it up. Every moment in the ring was, consciously or not, a search for that one shot. Roach understood immediately what he was looking at. A fighter of extraordinary raw material who had been built entirely around a single weapon. And to understand why, you have to go back to where Pacquiao came from. He was 12 years old when he started boxing in General Santos City. His family survived on bananas and root crops. Rice was a luxury. His father earned roughly 80 pence a day gathering coconuts on a farm, and it still wasn't enough to keep the family from going hungry. Pacquiao has said, publicly, that his first real dream as a child, not a boxing dream, a life dream, was a table overflowing with food. His family eating until they were full for an entire day. He didn't get his first pair of shoes until he was 12. At 16, he lied about his age to turn professional, not for glory, for the $2 he earned when he won. His early Philippine trainers taught him what they had to teach under those conditions: survival, instinct, how to impose your will before someone imposes theirs on you. There were no systems, no footwork diagrams, no jab-cross-hook combinations practiced in a mirror. There was only the question every young fighter in that position asks himself before every fight. How do I get through this? Pacquiao answered that question the same way, every time, with that left hand. By the time he reached Roach, that left hand had answered the question successfully, through 35 fights, 2 losses, and 1 world title. It had been forged over nearly a decade of professional fighting into something automatic, irreversible, and devastating. The challenge Roach faced wasn't training a raw fighter. The challenge was redirecting one. And so Roach went to work. Heavy mitt sessions, designed specifically to build a right hand to complement the left. New footwork, new angles. The goal was to turn a one-dimensional weapon into something that opponents couldn't account for or survive. A multi-dimensional fighter who could hurt you from anywhere, at any time, in any combination. What Roach did not expect was what happened next. Pacquiao was a machine, not just willing, not just hard-working. Pacquiao came in every day and absorbed instruction with a focus and speed that Roach had never encountered. He didn't tune Roach out the way so many fighters do when the novelty of a new trainer wears off. He never stopped listening. He never stopped adjusting. Roach later said he kept waiting for the moment Pacquiao would begin to drift, the inevitable dynamic where a seasoned fighter decides he knows better. That moment never came. Roach would eventually say he had to hold Pacquiao back, that Pacquiao worked so hard, so relentlessly, with so little regard for his own recovery, that Roach had to physically intervene. He had to tell one of the most ferocious fighters on the planet to slow down. Some days, he let it go. Other days, he said, he had to almost tackle him. That is the dynamic nobody foresaw when Pacquiao walked into the wild card. Not a reluctant student and a frustrated trainer. Not chaos being forced into a system. What actually developed was something rarer and more interesting. A fighter with a decade of instinct embedded in his body, meeting a trainer with the intelligence to preserve what was already there while building everything around it. Roach didn't tear Pacquiao down and rebuild him. He added to him. He built the right hand that Oscar de la Hoya couldn't find an answer for. He developed the footwork that made Ricky Hatton look like he was chasing a shadow. He constructed the combinations that turned Manny Pacquiao from a great left hand attached to a fighter into a fighter attached to everything. And every bit of it was built on top of the foundation that had been laid in General Santos City, in gyms with no air conditioning, by a 12-year-old who learned to fight because the alternative was worse. Roach himself put it simply. He opened the wild card, he once said, hoping the next Muhammad Ali would walk through the door. He did not know, in 2001, that his Muhammad Ali would weigh 122 pounds. Here's the detail that reframes the entire story. The trainers who passed on Pacquiao weren't wrong about what they saw. They saw a lightweight fighter from the Philippines with limited earning potential and a style built around one punch. They were right about all of that. What they couldn't see, because they never got close enough to feel it, was the thing that made Roach certain after a single round. That snap. That explosive, almost unnatural quality behind every punch. The thing that wasn't visible from across a gym. The thing you could only know if you were the one holding the mitts. The other trainers looked at Manny Pacquiao and saw the limitations. Freddie Roach felt the potential. One of the dumbest things people say to Roach now, he has noted, is that they have the next Manny Pacquiao. He calls it the worst line in boxing, because there is no next Manny Pacquiao. 8 world titles across 8 weight divisions. Fighter of the decade. One of the greatest pound-for-pound runs the sport has ever produced. It started with 1 round on the mitts, in a gym on Vine Street in Hollywood, on a summer afternoon in 2001. One trainer was willing to get close enough to find out what he had. That decision, that one small act of actually engaging instead of just observing, changed boxing history. And the fighter everyone else passed on became the thing they could never explain, and never replicate, and will likely never see again.